just want to set some guidelines here. This is a safe place. I'm going to try to be as neutral as possible and put my perspectives here. I'm going to share my perspectives, but I'm also knowing that I'm open to other people's perspectives, even if they differ from mine. And I just, as I would listen to you with my heart, I hope that you would listen to what I'm saying with your heart and be open to new perspectives, even if we leave here disagreeing. I wanted to come and make this video to just kind of share some of my feelings, my experiences, and hopefully even some of my expertise in the area of trauma-informed practices and restorative practices that I believe is helping me cope during these difficult times. And I was thinking, and I had a flashback to a moment when I worked previously as a school counselor, and I worked in a school that was predominantly like Hispanic, the Latinx community, and there was only a few African American kids at the school, and I remember a lot of times we dealt with kids calling our black students the N-word, and in those situations I was called in to be the mediator, and I would have to hold a circle, a restorative circle, to kind of talk through what happened and help the kids repair that relationship and confession and repentance, and then repairing the relationship. And a lot of times it was very effective. And I remember, like, I would be angry because I don't like anyone calling me the N-word or calling someone of my race the N-word, but I had to control my emotions, and I had to understand that I love both of these kids. A lot of times it was students that I actually really cared about, and I loved them both, and I had to raise awareness and help them communicate with one another, and then also help the student. I remember one instance, it was a white student who called a black boy the N-word. I had to talk to him personally and let him know what that meant and how it affected me and what it felt like, and I remember he started crying, and because I didn't yell at him, I didn't condemn him, I just educated him, and it brought conviction. And so that experience just made me think about what's going on right now. And whenever I work in restorative practices, the end goal is always reconciliation. And so we're angry right now in this nation because of the racial injustices that have occurred, and we are hurting because of deep-rooted pain that a lot of people don't even know about. And but we have to remember what is the end goal, and for every person the end goal may be different, but for me the end goal is reconciliation. When we talk about reconciliation, it's really no different than what Dr. Martin Luther King what he sacrificed his life for: equality between races, that black Americans, black children, black adults can have the same opportunities and equal opportunities as whites in every area of our life. And though it seems that we've arrived, the reality is that we haven't, and I'm going to talk about that more. And I think with the murder of George Floyd, there's some misunderstanding between the white community and the black community, and I think that's the biggest thing. I see a lot of miscommunication, miseducation. We don't live in the same neighborhoods because we're segregated. You know, white people live in white neighborhoods, and our black people live in black neighborhoods, and we go to white churches, and we have black churches, and we have this divide between us. So we really don't understand each other, and you're not understanding our experiences, you're not understanding our pain. And I think if I could host a restorative circle between a white America and black America, so that we can talk and have conversations, real hard conversations, so we can understand what the disconnect is, what the miscommunication is. For some people, they just don't like black people, and that's it. And this is not for those people. Like, you can't restore anything with anyone who doesn't like you and doesn't want a relationship with you. So, like, that's the reality. That is some people in America. But I do believe in my heart that there are white Americans, white people who want to have good relationships, who want equality, but we don't understand each other's experiences, and we're not speaking the same language, and there's a language barrier, there's a disconnect, and that will be the goal of the restorative circle, is to bridge that disconnect, if that makes sense. So these are my thoughts, and like I said, I'm just one black person This is my goal. This is what I live for. I believe in restorative practices. I believe in restorative justice. I believe in healing circles. I believe in trauma-informed practices. I train all over LA County, Los Angeles County, training service providers in this because I'm passionate about it and I believe in it, and I believe that it can bring healing in our nation. And so I'm sharing from my perspective, so I don't want anyone to feel like you need to feel how I feel, because every Black person has had their own experiences and they feel how they feel right now, and that is okay. If you don't want to reconcile right now, that's where you at, that's real. But for me, this is just what I want to share, my own personal goals and wishes and dreams. The first thing I want to talk about is putting on a trauma-informed lens. I think that we can have a true conversation, a real conversation, if we don't put it on a trauma-informed lens. So what does that look like? It's like putting on, we call it a lens, where you can't be, like, I can't be white and I can't know what it's like to be a white American, but as likewise a white American can't know what it's like to be a Black American. We are different, but we can try to put on glasses and look into each other's life to see things a little bit more clearly and understand each other. So I'm gonna be using the word trauma-informed lens in this, and when I say that, I mean that now we're putting on a different lens and looking into that person's perspective, their experiences, we can't walk in their shoes, but we can attempt to see what it's like and what it feels like. The biggest thing right now is understanding that we are in a mourning season, and we want to mourn with those who mourn. When someone loses someone, sometimes you just need to be a little bit more sensitive. If someone has a recent loss in their family, you might be a little bit more sensitive in how you say things. And so right now, it's not always about what you're saying, because you could be saying something accurate. It's how you're saying it, and is this the right time to say it? People are hurting, people are crying, people have lost like a family member, people have lost someone in their community, and they are in pain. So even some people who may be saying, well, this is true, this is a fact, understanding, and let's be empathetic that we have experienced a loss right now, and just as fellow humans, like understanding that there is a time and a place to say things where it can be heard and it can be useful and helpful and not harmful. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up some points that I feel like I've heard white people say and Black people disagree on, and some things that we've argued about, and I'm just gonna try to have a restorative circle with myself. So a lot of people are saying, or you may be thinking, if you're not saying it, why are you so upset? You don't even know George Floyd. Why is everyone crying and you don't even know him personally, or you don't know his background, you don't really know who he is? I hear you. I hear that concern, and if you're not a part of the Black community, that can seem odd to you, or it can seem like it doesn't make sense. I've heard that. I've seen people write that, like on social media and things like that. But I want to say that if we're going to put on a trauma-informed lens, and just really think about the Black experience, what we're seeing is a buildup. And I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship and you just like be quiet and you try to just keep peace. I know I've been there before. You just try to keep the peace. You don't say anything, and just one thing after another keeps building up, and you keep just taking it, and then one day you just explode. I think that's what we're seeing now. We've seen constantly, year after year after year, Black man after Black man after Black man, people who look like us, murdered without justice. And now we're at a tipping point where we're exploding, and it's hurtful and it's deep-rooted pain. So there are a lot of Black men, and that's what you may not know if you don't live in the Black community. Police brutality is like regular, like it's like a regular occurrence. I know so many Black men who have been beat up by the police, and it's not reported. Like I don't know if you ever tried to report the police to the police. I have. It just doesn't go well. And so we have things happening in our community every single day that no one knows about. It's not reported. We don't riot about it. We just take it. We've been taking it. And now it's the tipping point. It's like, it's enough. All we're asking is that you don't murder us. And if you at least give us justice, or at least convict people when they do harm us, even though they shouldn't be harming us. And so I think that's what it is. A lot of black men, I can imagine, who have been beat up by the cops. I can name a lot of Black men. Like, that happens in the Black community. Like, whether you want to believe it or not, beating up people is like I don't know if it's a scare tactic. I don't know why it's happening. It shouldn't be happening. So a lot of black men are looking, or black people who have been attacked or been beat up by cops are thinking that could have been me. And it becomes real personal when you could have been in that position, when you having flashbacks. And if we really think about trauma-informed practices, and what I teach is that, you know, like, adverse experiences from your past can be re-traumatizing and bring up the same feelings that you had when you were in that situation. That's evidence-based. Like, that's what happens biologically. And so understanding that we are in a place of re-traumatization, and some of the reactions you may be experiencing may not make sense to you, but it's because it's personal trauma that people are dealing with. And so when you see people like protesting and crying out for justice for George Floyd, what we're also saying is we want justice for all black people. And justice looks like, when I call the police, if I'm in a black neighborhood, I get the same response that I would get if I were in a white neighborhood. And I can tell you from personal experience, I don't call the police if I'm in Detroit, because they're not gonna come. I've called the police when I needed medical attention, when I was attacked in my home with a gun and I was bleeding from my head, and it was an attempted robbery and rape. And I called the police and they didn't come. I had to call my family members to come pick me up and take me to the hospital, because if the police don't come, then the EMS don't come. And then that leads to further like death, because if the EMS don't show up, you know, you're not getting the medical attention you need in the time that you need it, which leads to more deaths in the black community. And so I can tell you from experience, there is racial inequality in the criminal justice system. And so all we're saying is that if I live in a black neighborhood, I want the police to show up just like I want the police to show up for me if I lived in a white neighborhood. And so you may say, like, a lot of people are like, we need to honor the police and respect the police, and I absolutely agree with that. Me just putting in my trauma-informed lens and seeing it from a white perspective, if you've had all great encounters with the police, if the police have showed up for you every time you've called, if they serve you and they protect you, then I can see why you feel passionate about, you know, police rights and Blue Lives Matter and things like that. However, you just have to understand that's not my experience with the police. And though I honor the police because I was raised to respect everyone, no matter what my experience is with them, our experiences are not the same. I've lived in predominantly white neighborhoods, and the police always show up when I call there. But if I go back home, or if I move to a black community, I know there's going to be a difference. There is a difference in how the police protect us, how they serve us, and how they treat us. And that's just a fact. So another statement that I hear a lot in the white community is like, you know, there are so many opportunities for everyone now, for blacks, for everyone. You just need to work harder. And I do believe in hard work ethic, and I think we all can agree to that. But I would like to also say, have you ever like visited a predominantly black school in a low socioeconomic community? Have you ever stepped foot in one? Have you ever been to a school or tried to receive education or sent your child to a school like that? If you haven't, then you'll never know the lack of equality that exists in the educational system. And I'm not making excuses, because obviously I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, and I was able to, you know, beat the statistics and get 3 degrees and be, you know, like, do everything that I set my heart to do. However, there's also privilege in that, and I'll talk about that later. But number one, I did not receive quality education. If where I lived, there is a predominantly white neighborhood and a predominantly black neighborhood literally 1 block away, and they have like the best schools in the state, and then we have like the worst schools in the nation. And I can remember times when we didn't have textbooks for like the whole year, or where we didn't have teachers, we had subs the whole entire year. And so I didn't receive the best quality education that I know my white counterparts received. However, yes, I did work hard, yes, I did succeed, but I want to recognize that there's no equality there. And if we're not even giving children a chance at success, if we're not giving them equal opportunities, and they are not receiving equal opportunities, go look up the statistics, then it's not fair to just say work harder. No, we need to say let's if you say we're going to give you equal opportunities and you need to work harder, great. But the first thing we should be saying to our community is, we understand that there are, this is what we want to hear, is that we understand that there are not equal opportunities, that the educational system is failing our students, and children are being robbed of education, which is what they really, really need to be successful in this world. And so it's really understanding that, and no one's asking for anyone to feel sorry for us or to like be sympathetic. We're just asking for resources and funding. If we can get that, we will be great. And so I hear a lot of people saying you need to work harder. There are so many organizations, grassroots organizations in Black communities that are doing the work. There are so many teachers that could go to other districts and make more money, but they stay in our communities and they work hard to support our children. But we need more help. It's not working, obviously. It's not the same level of opportunities that's provided, and I just want to make that clear. But I definitely understand hard work ethic. For me, I was always labeled as a gifted child, and I know for a fact that I received favoritism from teachers, from counselors, from people who would literally pay out of pocket for me to get certain experiences that other students in my class did not receive. So that is privilege. Talking about privilege, just putting on another lens, like I can see how some white people may feel offended when they hear, or they feel weird, or it doesn't sit right with them when people say like you have white privilege. And especially if you don't truly understand what it is. So I want to recognize that. Because some people may say, I had a hard life too, or I experienced this, like I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I'm privileged. And for me, growing up in a single with a single mom and being poor, and a lot of other experiences I experienced, I also could say I wasn't privileged at all. But in every area of our life, it's not just white privilege. We all have different levels of privilege. So for me, when I was in school, I was always labeled as gifted. And so I received special privileges because of that. I remember there were times when I was in school and my teachers would give me, like, go buy a curriculum just for me, or do certain things just for me, or take me after school to different programs that were outside the city to expose me to different things. So when I look at what I received compared to what the rest of my classmates were receiving, that's privilege. So you don't have to be offended by privilege. Like, it's actually something that helps us excel and be great, but we have to acknowledge the areas where we have received some type of favoritism or some type of benefit over others who are around us. So another thing I hear a lot is the topic of Black on Black crime, and let's just put on a trauma-informed lens right now and really hear one another. So I can understand, maybe not agree with, but I can understand how someone would say, why are you all protesting about the police brutality and not protesting about the Black on Black crime? Clearly you don't care about yourself. No, not true. I think there's a misunderstanding. We actually do care about the Black on Black crime. If you come to the Black community, if you talk to Black people, which we need to start talking to one another, there are so many organizations that fight against crime, and there are so many programs being put into schools to prevent gangs and to prevent gang violence. Like, there are tons of resources. Now, do they have the proper funding that they need to be successful? No. However, there are people on the ground doing the work. So it's really offensive when you've never been to a Black community and you say statements like that are so general when you have such a limited perspective or even understanding of our community. But on top of that, I think what the misunderstanding is that we are fighting for equality. We are fighting for equality, meaning that if a Black person kills a Black person, that Black person, if we have the evidence and we show them the video and say, look, this Black person killed our Black family member, that person will go to jail and be convicted. And then we receive justice, and then we're able to go home and mourn and grieve and then come to peace with it. When a white police officer kills a Black person, we don't get justice. There's no conviction. Or if someone are convicted, they get like a minimal, like a slap on the wrist, basically. That's not equality. Then we can't have peace You know, no justice, no peace. We don't have peace when there's no justice. We can't go home and grieve and then come to peace with it and just move on with our lives, because we have broken pieces inside of us that didn't receive justice. And so we're just asking for, this is not a black on black crime issue. We know we have issues. I don't believe the black on black crime topic fits in this moment. I think it's something that we definitely need to talk about. And I don't think any black person would deny that black on black crime is an issue and needs to be addressed. However, I also don't know any black person who has had a family member murdered by another black person who didn't seek justice. Maybe they may have not gotten justice, but they go after justice. And in the justice system convicts black men, convicts black people when we do wrong. The problem is the justice system doesn't convict white cops when they do wrong. And that is what we're fighting for, equality. This has nothing to do with black on black crime from our perspective. So, closing circle. I do a lot of work, like I said, in restorative justice, restorative practice. And one thing I know is that you cannot move to the restoration and reconciliation phase until true confession and repentance is taking place. And I see a lot of companies like moving to solutions, giving money, donating, and things like that. But this is a heart matter, and I'm thankful for all of that. But this is the matter of the heart. And if we start offering money and solutions before we acknowledge one another, and acknowledge the pain, and acknowledge the history, and talk to one another, we're gonna repeat this cycle. So if nothing more, we just want to be heard, and our emotions validated, and our experiences validated, and not dismissed. And so I'm hopeful that we can be the nation that Martin Luther King dreamed about. I'm hopeful that I'll live to see it. I'm hopeful that my children won't experience even some of the racism that I've experienced, and that truly we can have a nation that's one with equality and justice for all.